schedule for this week because of the PA day on Friday. It will change the schedule, so you can see the new schedule as well as any meetings and things that I have too, and also when the students have phys ed versus when they have library or computers. So, and who's going to be taking them at what time. Sorry, that does change things. Language this week. On Monday, I'm looking at doing a little mini lesson on the idea of song, but with rhyming as well as letter sounds, and looking at a few different phonemic awareness concepts. So depending on where the students are at, they'll be able to maybe experiment with the idea of movement and song in what they create. This was inspired by a couple of students from last week as well, and I just want to kind of push it a step further for those students who are experimenting with different levels of rhyme. Then on Tuesday, I do have the calendar out right now, kind of as a little provocation, especially with us moving towards the 100th day. But I'm going to be looking at adding events and what kind of events we might be putting, and then how to add them and making the link to the writing part. Then on Wednesday, we'll be doing a little mini lesson on things that we learned this year with the hope of tying it in eventually to our 100th day plans, but with a real focus on sentence writing and using resources in the classroom to help with this writing as well as with sounding out, which will again tie in with some of the phonemic awareness piece. And then on Thursday, I'm looking at the idea of kind of extending that phonemic awareness piece with some silly sentences and stories. It will be a slightly different time on Thursday because our reading buddies are coming. So that, okay, so sorry, with our reading buddies coming, that does kind of make a little change in those plans. And then on Friday, I'm thinking of an idea that someone had suggested to me before, which was having the students actually look at creating their own class act activities, and that way we can focus in on the different skills that they're at, but they're going to be making them for some of the K students. So these are ones that I can actually pass along to the K students as well, but then the students can also review their skills and have an authentic audience for what they create, and they can use some of the technology choices as well as the paper and pencil choices, and kind of model it on some of the activities that are already in Class Act, and then we'll be able to actually use those in the classroom as well. Okay, so then for math, it's going to be a lot of math and movement and stuff this week. So on Monday, we're going to look at the idea of some different body shapes and how we can move our bodies, and also look at the idea of symmetry, and kind of reviewing the concepts that were taught on Friday, but with a little bit of a push for some physical literacy as well. And with movement, there's also going to be a little dance component that's in here too, as well as movement and beat and how we make shapes and things like that, so that we can kind of look critically at the shapes too, and at the components of the different shapes and figures, but also in how we move. Then on Tuesday, I'm looking at the idea of structure stability, and thanks to Christy, I have some really good ideas and questions to ask in terms of yoga and critical thinking, and how we can create some different structures, and then looking at the shapes and figures combined, and why some may be more stable than others. So there's a great little science tie-in here too, as well as a piece for dance as well. Then Wednesday, I'm thinking about looking at symmetry in art. And in art, when we have symmetry and don't have symmetry in similar things that we create. So the idea being that we're going to create two different pieces, one of which though is symmetrical and one of which is not, and then having a chance to look at it and consider why artists might use symmetry and why they may not, and our thoughts about the different pieces based on if they included or did not include symmetry, as well as the components of art. So really kind of tying in that piece too, and again, a little bit of that metacognitive piece as well that comes from the arts, not just from the math component. And then on Thursday, We end up not having math because of the reading buddy visits and the times, but I'm thinking of doing a quick review with some of the number sense piece too. And then on Friday, we're going to be looking at symmetry in structure building. With real materials. And so we'll be using some different materials, and the students can look at how at the connection, the material piece connection to the symmetry piece, and if having them or doesn't having them matter, and if it matters, depending if it always matters and why. And then we can also still look at the shapes and figures involved. So we can have kind of a more in-depth look after hopefully reviewing some of the concepts of symmetry throughout the week. And then the last piece to look at this week is that for shared reading, we're also going to be looking at a Three Bears song and play and experimenting with some drama and music, as well as language, with the hope of performing to the parents if any of them come in on the Friday. So they can be our audience, and parents can also help with our structure building, symmetry experiments and stuff if they come in on the Friday too. So this can also be part of the Friday visits as well as a tie-in to what we will be learning this week.